being that I did mention drugs and people with addictions during the course of this show tonight, this is another one of those disappearances. The disappearance of Jessica Garino from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Disappeared. The most correct date that we can come up with is January 22nd, 2012. The guest for this episode is Jessica's older sister, actually the oldest of three sisters. Her name is Ashley Hartman. And this episode is called Like a Bad Neighbor. And yes, I am kind of riffing off of the State Farm, Like a Good Neighbor, State Farm is there. Well, this Friday, it's called Like a Bad Neighbor. Right, Jessica Garino. That's right, Cherie. And the reason it's called that is because Jessica, while she was living in Tennessee, she was renting a home. She was only 19, 20 years old, but renting a house. One sister was living with her. And then I think even the other sister came to live with Jessica, and they were living there. And the next door neighbor was this guy. His name was Carson. They'd cook out together, get together. He was quite a bit older than these young women were. But they all got along fairly well, even though he was a lot older. And one day, what ended up happening, not to give too much of away before Friday, but the fact is this Carson guy got Jessica involved in drugs. And then he scooted out of town, out of the entire state of Tennessee when the police came looking for him. And then a year later or so, Jessica, because she had developed this drug problem from Carson, she decided maybe she was going to try another state, maybe try to clean herself up, get back on the right track. Well, what her family ended up finding out is she moved to North Carolina, and who was she living with? Carson. Secretively, not telling anybody. In fact, she had lied to her family about who she was living with. Well, the story goes is that, as we hear so many times in these types of disappearances, Carson says, yep, she just up and disappeared in the middle of the night. But what is different in this disappearance is that there were two other men living in this house with Jessica and Carson at the time. And over the course of 2012, their stories changed as to their memory as to what happened. They told one story a month later, but then the law enforcement, when they talked to them several months later, these two guys changed their stories. So that is this Friday's disappearance. Jessica Garino, Garino, from Goldsboro, North Carolina. We're putting the date as January 22nd, and you'll find out why. It can't be totally precise, but that's as accurate as we can be. January 22nd, 2012. The guest is Jessica's oldest sister, Ashley, and the episode is called Like a Bad Neighbor. So I think that is it. Another hour and 45-minute program, and it goes so fast. It is just crazy. So what do we do tonight? Told you about how I'm going to be involved in a disc golf show of some type, video or audio, within the next few months. Looking forward to that, talking about my favorite sport. Talked about the passing of Janice Norwood. Unfound on the Ground this Monday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern for all of you premium Patreon members. Once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You can also contribute at paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Talked about the Thompson poll. We talk about those polls every live show. Talked about the Mara Murray TV show and how, although I loved it that they interviewed some of these people we've heard about so many times, on the other hand, I thought it was way over the top, emotionally manipulative. Talked about drug disappearances and about why we may cover so many of them on Unfound. Linda Stoltfus still missing. Jonathan Estes' his wife Cindy's trial Did not happen last Wednesday, so it's been put off, rescheduled. Talked about the leg bone in the boot on the shore of the Mississippi River. We talked about Phil Klein's statement that he posted, I don't know, over a week ago. Took a bunch of questions from Jill, Natasha, Lois, Sherry, Kimberly, and Laura. And then we finished up, as we always do, with this Friday's episode preview of it, the disappearance of Jessica Garino. So you will hear me Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, and then I'll see some of you in the think tank on Sunday evening. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. It's been beautiful here in Florida. What am I going to do tomorrow? I got some calls to make tomorrow. I'm going to do some other things. And I'll see you later. Thank you all for tuning in tonight and staying with this show for an hour and 45 minutes. One of my favorite parts of my week. I love it. Good night, everyone.